Do you know what the most widely used drug in America is? The answer is caffeine. About 90% of adults in America consume caffeine every single day, and more than half of those adults consume more than 300 milligrams. I'm sure all of you have consumed caffeine in some way or another. Maybe you're one of the 85% of Americans that have to have a cup of coffee every morning. Or maybe you're like me, you procrastinate, something needs to get done, so you grab an energy drink to give you a little bit of that liquid motivation. But how much do you really know about caffeine? Do you know how much caffeine is in your morning coffee or that Red Bull? You may hear people say that caffeine is bad for you, but did you know that it actually provides some health benefits? First, I'm going to discuss what caffeine is and where it comes from. Then I'll explain the different ways in which we consume it, and lastly, I will talk about both the positive and negative effects caffeine has on our bodies. So what exactly is caffeine? Well, it's a natural stimulant found in leaves and seeds of over 60 plants. For example, it's found in coffee beans, tea leaves, and cocoa beans. But although caffeine is naturally produced, it can also be man-made. This is done by a process called the Fischer method, which involves the synthesis of uric acid. Well, when caffeine is in its pure form, it is a bitter white powder, which accounts for the bitterness of that coffee. Due to its stimulant property on our central nervous system, caffeine is considered a drug, and it actually shares a few traits with some of the more infamous drugs such as amphetamine and cocaine. But don't worry, caffeine is perfectly legal and found in many of the things that we eat and drink in our everyday lives. So now that we know what caffeine is and where it comes from, let's go on to discuss the different ways in which we consume it. First, let me tell you that the FDA, or according to the FDA, 300 milligrams of caffeine is the upper limit of a moderate daily dose. Most of the caffeine we consume comes from our drinks. Coffee is actually the most common source and can contain up to 200 milligrams in a typical 8-ounce cup. And an espresso can contain up to 75 milligrams in just that tiny little ounce. Oh, and you know that decaf coffee that you drink when you don't want that extra energy boost? Well, you may be surprised to know that decaf does not mean caffeine free, and most decaf coffee actually contains a small amount of caffeine. That's about 2 to 12 milligrams a cup. This also goes for decaffeinated tea, whereas a normal caffeinated cup of black tea contains up to 70 milligrams of caffeine, and a cup of green tea can contain up to 45 milligrams. So that large sweet tea from McDonald's that is oh so delicious contains about 100 milligrams. Maybe you're not much of a coffee or tea drinker, and your guilty pleasure is an ice-cold soda. And not all sodas contain caffeine. For example, Sprite, 7-Up, ginger ale, and most root beers contain absolutely no caffeine. But the most popular Coca-Cola contains 35 milligrams in a can, and the soda with the highest caffeine content, about twice that of a Coke, is the Pepsi Max with 69 milligrams per can. Mountain Dew comes in second at 55 milligrams per can. Sodas are limited by the FDA to 71 milligrams of caffeine per can, and anything that exceeds that is considered an energy drink. The well-known Red Bull contains 80 milligrams of caffeine in the small 8.4-ounce can, and that 5-hour energy contains a whopping 200 milligrams in just 2 ounces. As you can see, there are lots of drinks that have caffeine in them, but let's move on to our foods. Like I said before, cocoa beans are a natural source of caffeine, which makes it common sense that chocolate would contain caffeine. Most chocolate bars have less than 10 milligrams of caffeine in them, but the darker chocolate, the more caffeine it contains. Also, many coffee-flavored ice creams contain caffeine. It depends on the brand, but they typically have about 20 to 40 milligrams in a half-cup serving. But besides foods and drinks, caffeine is also found in many prescription and non-prescription drugs. The prescription drug Caffeine uses caffeine to treat breathing problems in premature babies. Caffeine is used in multiple pain relievers like Excedrin Extra Strength, contains 65 milligrams in 2 capsules, and Midol, often a lifesaver among women, contains 60 milligrams per tablet. Caffeine is also used in weight loss pills. Hydroxycut Hardcore Elite contains 270 milligrams in 2 capsules. And the directions on the bottle actually recommend that you take 2 capsules twice a day, and that adds up to 540 milligrams of caffeine a day. That's past that moderate daily dose. Maybe you just need that quick caffeine fix. There are over-the-counter energy pills you can buy. They are simply caffeine powder. One brand called Bavarian contains 200 milligrams of caffeine in one capsule. So as you can see, caffeine is everywhere in the things we consume, but what does that mean? What effect does caffeine have on our bodies? Well, the obvious benefits of caffeine are increased alertness, ability to focus, and physical performance. My senior year in high school, I would bring a 2-liter of Mountain Dew for the volleyball team to share before our games because I thought it made us play better. We actually set the record for the most wins in a season, so it must have actually worked. Caffeine will also improve your mood. That's why some people will tell you not to talk to them until they've had their morning cup of joe. This mood boost also contributes to a lower risk of suicide associated with caffeine consumption. As I mentioned earlier, caffeine can be used to treat breathing problems and headaches. It's also been linked to weight loss. Studies have shown that a habit of 3 to 5 cups of caffeinated coffee a day reduces the risk of Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's disease. A study done by the American Cancer Society found that people who drank at least 4 cups of caffeinated coffee a day were half as likely to die from oral pharyngeal cancer as those who only drank coffee occasionally. Those are a few benefits, but like any stimulant, caffeine has a few negative effects. It will depend on how much caffeine you consume and how caffeine affects you, but some side effects of too much caffeine, according to the Mayo Clinic, include jitteriness, insomnia, anxiety, increased heart rate, headache, dehydration, and increased blood pressure. Like any drug, caffeine is addictive, and quitting cold turkey can cause withdrawal symptoms like drowsiness, headache, irritability, nausea, and vomiting. Like I said, caffeine will affect everyone differently, and for me, the benefits outweigh the risk, so I will continue to drink my Dr. Pepper and eat my Milky Way. Well, we have now discussed what caffeine is and where it comes from, the ways in which we consume it, and the effects it has on our bodies.